Welcome to the Journal. We return to capital crimes because while Jack Abramoff is in jail, the investigation into this epic scandal is expanding with new revelations about the rot at the core of our government. A major new book to be published next week puts it all into context. Thomas Frank's The Wrecking Crew, excerpted in Harper's Magazine, now in the newsstands, describes the rise of a ruling coalition dedicated to dismantling government by simply selling it off. That was the theme of our report on capital crimes, produced by my colleague Sherry Jones. Take a look at this and stay tuned for an update. The story begins in 1984. A young Jack Abramoff was introduced to the Republican National Convention.
One of the ever-growing list of young people who have joined in the Republican cause. The chairman of the College Republican National Committee, Jack Abramoff, for purposes of addressing the committee.
A self-described rabid right-winger, he now headed the organization that had launched the careers of Republican power brokers from Lee Atwater to Karl Rove.
Fellow Republicans, I come before you today representing American students, the future of our Republican Party.
When I heard it for the first time, when they mentioned Jack's name, I said to myself, he did it. Because that's what he did when we were college Republicans. We wanted to entertain congressmen. That was like winning a football game.
The team headed by Abramoff had lots of connections and lots of plays.
One of the favorite ones was, can we create a hospitality suite with plenty of liquor and plenty of college girls, and see if we could get a congressman to come to that. And you could.
As college students, Jack Abramoff and another young Republican, Grover Norquist, organized campuses for Ronald Reagan. Now Norquist had become Abramoff's executive director. Together, they intended to remove liberals from power, as Abramoff put it, permanently.
We were idealists. We were young people who thought that we were going to save the world for democracy. I mean, we were fighting for the liberty of the world. And in that sense, we viewed everything as ideology. It either helps our fight against the communists or it doesn't.
Let none who oppose freedom.
They dreamed up headline-grabbing stunts like this one in the shadow of the Capitol to support Reagan's anti-communist foreign policy.
Good morning, my name is Ralph Reed. I'm the Executive Director of Students for America.
Ralph Reed, a junior from the University of Georgia, joined the hard-charging team as a $200 a month intern.
Built along the lines of those that are in Nicaragua.
It was very simple, very black and white. We used Army metaphors. We talked about being hardcore.
Volunteers sent out to organize the grassroots were told to memorize a speech from the movie Patton. But for the word Nazis, they were to substitute the word Democrats. Wade into them, the young recruits repeated, spill their blood.
And if we're the party of composure and not the party that ducks disclosure, then we're riding our way. We equivocate, capitulate,
From the beginning, Abramoff played fast and loose with the money.
we try to outspend Big Fat Tip O'Neill.
We were bankrupt, and we owed thousands and thousands of dollars. And I was going, there's no way. We had people call us every day, printing companies and wanting money. And, and I played that horrible game for 6 months or 3 months of going, I don't have the bill, send me a bill, what's it for, and so forth, because we were inundated with just tons of debt that Jack had run up.
Two of my colleagues and I quit working with him in 1983 because we thought he was completely unethical, and I never went back to talk to him since.
And so it is to our party that they come. It is with us that they trust our dreams, and it is in us that they place their hopes.
He seemed to be very much a man of principle until you got into it with Jack and began to see what he did. When it came to money, Jack had no principles.
And it's for them that we must restore liberty and righteousness throughout the world. Thank you.
In November 1994, Republicans won 8 new Senate seats and a whopping 52 seats in the House. The revolution imagined by Abramoff and his college Republicans was embodied in Newt Gingrich, the new Speaker of the House. Gingrich put Washington on notice. If you want to play in our revolution, he said, you have to live by our rules. And at the center of the action was Grover Norquist, a chief architect of the revolution.
And yeah, I'd love to get together with them Thursday morning if I can before I have to go up to New Hampshire. Thanks.
Poring over a list of campaign contributions, Norquist concocted a scheme to turn Washington into a Republican town. Insist that only Republicans be hired as lobbyists, and make sure the lobbyists contribute only to Republicans. The result would be a lucrative money machine for the party. He dubbed it the K Street Project, after the lobbyists' main drag in downtown Washington.
One day, my Republican head of government relations came back from a meeting at Grover's shop, and he said that they had distributed a list of the biggest Democratic contributors that year who were registered lobbyists.
Grover's shop is called Americans for Tax Reform, and it's the conservative movement's nerve center. Every Wednesday morning, Norquist commands a strategy session of congressional staff, party activists, and think tankers. On Capitol Hill, Tom DeLay of Texas had moved up to number 3 in the new House leadership. He became the K Street Project's enforcer.
And he called lobbyists in one at a time, and he put this ledger in front of them and said, here's the book. You've contributed too much money to Democrats. You've got to contribute more money to Republicans. We're in power now. His ambition was to create a vertically integrated political machine that controlled who was in the lobby at the top, controlled who got big lobby jobs, some of them $1.5 million a year, some of them $1 million a year, some of them, the lower paying jobs, $250,000 a year. If they could control who got them, then they could control the political contributions that lobbyists and their clients made. So that was the top of this vertically integrated shakedown machine.
Every lobby shop in town was searching for an in with the new GOP majority. Among them was the venerable Seattle firm of Preston Gates.
Their old connections weren't anywhere near as effective, and to sort of have contact and be able to talk with the new crowd, they needed somebody who had the bona fides to talk to them. Jack did.
The K Street Project paved the way for Jack Abramoff. The firm announced its new hire with a press release touting Abramoff's ties to the Republican National Committee, to the Christian Coalition headed by his old pal Ralph Reed, and to the new leaders of the House, Newt Gingrich and Tom DeLay. But there was no one more indispensable to Abramoff's rise than Grover Norquist.
They were probably about as inseparable as two political people can get.
What the Republicans need is 50 Jack Abramoffs, Norquist said. Then this becomes a different town. So it did.
If it wasn't for his relation with Grover Norquist, Jack Abramoff would never have been able to become the super lobbyist that he became, and to charge the huge rates that he charged, because he had this unique relationship with certain Republican leaders.
The hefty fees would enrich Abramoff, and he in turn would direct his clients to enrich the conservative political machine. One of his first was the wealthiest gambling tribe in America, the Mississippi Choctaw. To keep their huge casino earnings from being taxed, the tribe needed connections to the right people in Washington.
It appears from their own words, Mr. Abramoff and Mr. Scanlon held their tribal clients in absolute contempt. In an email discussing a dinner meeting with a client, the reason Mr. Abramoff could not attend: I have to meet with the monkeys from the Choctaw Tribal Council. Mind you that these monkeys, quote unquote, had enriched him over a 5-year period with over $7 million in lobbying fees. It's a story of greed run amok.
In 1995, Jack Abramoff had convinced the Choctaw he was their man. And Grover Norquist had just what Abramoff needed to prove his worth to the Choctaw, an organization dedicated to opposing all tax increases as a matter of principle. The two old college comrades framed the casino tax as a tax increase that conservatives should oppose. All of a sudden, activists at Norquist weekly meetings found themselves discussing Indian tribes.
We didn't know one tribe from another. We just, so what? Let them have their casino. We didn't know. Nobody knew they were multi-billion-dollar entities. It's not something anybody paid attention to.
But Norquist was paying attention, and the Choctaw were putting up the money to organize anti-tax groups across the country to lobby their cause.
Why in the world would Grover Norquist care so deeply about Indian tribes, unless there was something else going on? We all suspected something pretty fishy.
In fact, the Choctaw became a major contributor to Norquist's organization, and Norquist, in turn, was moving much of the money to this man, the third member of the old college Republican Troika. In 1989, Ralph Reed had become head of Pat Robertson's Christian Coalition. His skill at mixing religion with hardball politics landed him on the cover of Time magazine at the age of 33.
Reflects what we believe is one of the greatest cancers growing on the American body politic, and that is the scourge of legalized gambling.
But in the mid-1990s, Reed left to set up his own political consulting firm, and he sent an email to his old friend Jack Abramoff, who was now known on K Street as Casino Jack. This is what Reed wrote.
Hey, now that I'm done with electoral politics, I need to start humping in corporate accounts. I'm counting on you to help me with some contacts.
And humping they did go. Despite Reed's longtime opposition to gambling, he and Abramoff set out to protect the Choctaw Casino against competition. The scheme called for Reed to organize his fellow Christians on moral grounds to oppose threats to Abramoff's client, without telling them that that client was actually in the gambling business. Emails between the two make clear there was no doubt where the money came from. When Reed pushed for a green light, for example, to begin organizing devout gambling opponents in Alabama, Abramoff told him approval would first have to come from the Choctaw and ask,
"Get me invoices as soon as possible so I can get Choctaw to get us checks ASAP."
Reed wrote back with a list and a total.
We have fronted $100K, which is a lot for us.
Abramoff promised to do what he could.
Any chance that a wire from Choctaw directly would be okay?
Just days later, Reed tells Abramoff,
"We are opening the Bombays and holding nothing back."
Yeah, baby.
To keep secret the source of the Choctaw money paid to Reed and the Christian groups he recruited, Abramoff turned to their old friend, Grover Norquist. When Norquist needed money for his own organization, he turned to Jack.
What is the status of the Choctaw stuff? I have a $75K hole in my budget from last year. Ouch.
In a reminder to himself, Abramoff notes,
"Call Ralph, Reed Grover doing pass-through."
And then tells Reed,
"I need to give Grover something for helping, so the first transfer will be a bit lighter."
But not to worry with the next $300,000. So when Norquist again kept a cut for his cause, Abramoff registers his surprise.
Grover kept another $25K.
The money spigot was now wide open. Abramoff was being paid millions as a lobbyist. Reed was being paid millions to dupe his fellow Christians. And Norquist was feeding his political operation by acting as their cover. The three college Republicans first came to Washington to run a revolution. It was turning into a racket.
And what's the basis for your tribe making a donation to Americans for Tax Reform? I have no idea, Senator. I didn't understand it then. I opposed it, and I don't understand it today.
Did you, Mr. Abramoff, and you and your partner, your colleague, Mr. Scanlon, give $4 million to Ralph Reed?
Senator, I respectfully invoke the privileges previously stated.